Imagine a manuscript that does not belong to this world. An artifact written with ink made from blood and charcoal, whose symbols shift subtly when no one is watching. A text that whispers in forgotten tongues, threatening to tear away the sanity of anyone who reads it. They call it the Scroll of the Abyss. Not because of its content, which no one has ever fully managed to translate, but because of the consequences that befall those who dare to attempt it. It is not known when it first appeared. Some monastic orders claim it was discovered amidst the ruins of a buried Sumerian temple. Others say it was penned by a heretic during a triple eclipse, whilst his soul was consumed by something crawling beyond the veil of reality. What is certain is that, since the 12th century, fragmented reports about the scroll have surfaced in convent annals, alchemical grimoires, and sealed confessions within the cathedrals of the Inquisition. Those who tried to study it vanished without trace. Others were found dead, faces frozen in absolute terror. Some say the scroll changes shape, that it disappears and reappears in abandoned libraries, or that it chooses who may find it. Always accompanied by an omen, crows gathering for no reason, wells drying up, shadows lengthening even in the absence of light. But the most disturbing fact is that, in modern times, someone seems to have partially deciphered it, and what was revealed threatens the very fabric of reality. Today, we shall plunge into the origins of this forgotten relic, follow the trails of blood it has left throughout history, and uncover what inhuman secret lies hidden within its lines. Brace yourself. The true horror is not in what the scroll says, but in what it awakens within us. There is no consensus on the origin of the Scroll of the Abyss, but all accounts converge upon a single point. It was not made to be read by human eyes. The first concrete mention appears in the year 1137 in the coded notes of a Benedictine monk called Emilianus of Castra, sequestered in an isolated monastery in the Pyrenean mountains. In his writings, he describes the arrival of a stranger during a snowstorm, a silent man, cloaked in black, carrying an object wrapped in rawhide, exuding a stench of mildew and scrap iron. He handed the scroll to the monk without uttering a word and vanished into the storm. Emilianus believed it to be a divine test. For months he attempted to translate the symbols, but the language seemed to flow like smoke. A blend of Proto-Akkadian, Latin, and characters he swore were claw marks. As he delved deeper into the text, visions plagued him. A city submerged. Beneath nameless deserts, stars throbbing like hearts, voices whispering through the convent's walls. In his final surviving entry, he wrote, "Flesh is weak, but the scroll demands sacrifice." Days later, he was discovered hanging in the cloister, his eyes gouged out and a horrifying grin frozen upon his face. The scroll vanished and reappeared 2 centuries later in the possession of a Florentine alchemist named Giuliano Ravelli, known for his study of heretical texts. Ravelli wrote that the document seemed to be alive. The letters oozed across the page, forming new phrases when exposed to moonlight. He believed the text was a key, not to open physical doors, but to awaken a hidden form of consciousness. Giuliano was burned alive in his laboratory after a mysterious fire. Nothing remained of the scroll, save rumors. Yet, in the 16th century, an incomplete codex was discovered in the catacombs of Prague, among the possessions of an occultist named Franz Niederwald. This fragment, now kept under strict secrecy in the Vatican's Black Archive, contains 3 recurring symbols: an inverted spiral, an eye weeping blood, and a name repeated in differing spellings, something approximating Jaluketh. According to modern occult scholars, this name pertains to an entity described in pre-human Mesopotamian rituals, a creature that feeds upon revelation. There is evidence that the scroll was not written all at once. It is said to have been cultivated, penned over centuries by different hands. Corrupted monks, fugitive witches, insane prophets, all merely instruments guided by a greater force that used their dreams and deliriums to dictate the text. The material upon which it was written is no less unconventional. Modern examinations of fragments attributed to the scroll reveal a combination of human skin treated with resins and unknown substances, impossible to date precisely. The ink, clotted blood mixed with volcanic soot. Obscure records note that Leonardo da Vinci himself attempted to access the scroll through esoteric circles, but abandoned his effort upon witnessing the living insanity seeping from the letters. In the 18th century, a Lutheran sect called the Children of the Second Sight claimed to possess a partial copy of the text. Its members disappeared after a collective ritual, and their dwelling was found etched with symbols on the walls, all referring to the inverted spiral, the seal of the abyss. This is not a commonplace manuscript. The scroll of the abyss appears to exist between planes, moving from hand to hand like a ravenous curse. It does not merely convey knowledge, it corrupts, transforms, demands, as though there were an entity behind it, using the text as a channel to manifest in the physical world. A document which, when read with an open mind, acts as an invitation or a silent pact. Now, as we tread the paths left by its readers, we begin to fathom the price of this forbidden knowledge. For the scroll does not only destroy those who read, it drags them into something far deeper than death. The history of the scroll of the abyss is etched not only by its origins, but by the souls it devoured through the centuries. Each person who came into direct contact with the manuscript became part of an invisible chain of horrors, witnesses to a knowledge that transcends reason and time. Their tales are scattered across convents, castles, forgotten mansions, and forbidden libraries. And they all end in the same manner: madness, disappearance, or death. One of the earliest documented accounts comes from 1272 at the Abbey of Cluny in France. Brother Alaric of Bréon, archivist of the scriptorium, is said to have found the scroll among volumes confiscated as Gnostic heresies. Initially, he assumed it to be a forgery, but soon worked in secret on its translation. His cellmates reported hearing indecipherable chants emanating from his chamber, even in the hushed monastic silence. A few weeks later, he was found dead, his skull split open like a flower, symbols carved into the inside of the exposed bone. No sign of intrusion, no cutting instruments. The scroll had vanished. 2 centuries later, in 1496, the Hungarian nobleman István Báthory, ancestor of the infamous Erzsébet Báthory, obsessed with occultism, acquired the scroll through Italian intermediaries. He believed the text contained instructions to open internal and external portals. According to his personal servant's records, Báthory conducted rituals in crypts beneath the castle, where he placed raw meat and mirrors dusted with ash. After 4 months, he disappeared on a moonless night. His guards found his chamber empty and the mirrors shattered from within. In the 17th century in Salamanca, the mystical philosopher Gaspar de Villabona wrote an unpublished treatise titled On the Word That Dreads to Be Spoken, in which he mentions a scroll that dreams of living eyes. His diary reveals a gradual mental collapse. He believed himself watched by orbits dangling between words and began to fear spoken language, limiting himself to writing only with charcoal on leather. One day, he vanished from the university, leaving behind a single sheet bearing 3 sentences that no one could decipher, except one student who committed suicide days later, leaving the message, "The sound of letters no longer silences." The most documented case, however, is from the 19th century, involving the German librarian Friedrich Keller, curator of the hidden collection at the University of Göttingen. He supposedly obtained the scroll at a secret auction in Brussels. Described as a skeptic, Friedrich soon surrendered to a feverish obsession while studying the text. His diaries reveal he believed there was a second plane of reading, a bottomless level accessible only in near-death states. He began to induce such states in himself via mild poisoning, sleep deprivation, and inhaling vapors. Finally, in a bid to reach this hidden layer of the scroll, Friedrich locked himself in a sealed chamber with burning charcoal and smoking vinegar. When he was discovered, he was still alive, but with all his teeth extracted and his tongue severed. On the floor, scrawled in his own blood, were the words, "I heard, it does not sleep." There are also clandestine records from a Soviet KGB agent dated 1962, referring to the seizure of an artifact composed of biological material and non-terrestrial script. It was reportedly removed from an abandoned Orthodox church in Georgia. The Kremlin scientists who attempted to analyze it exhibited severe schizophrenia and cognitive collapse. One of them, Dr. Igor Volodin, left a recording before being institutionalized. Language must not be seen. It shapes, it incarnates, it devours. The file remains classified. Finally, we arrive at the contemporary case that reignited interest in the Scroll of the Abyss. In 2007, a researcher in symbolic linguistics at Leiden University in the Netherlands, Dr. Noël Thijs, announced she had obtained an original segment at a sacred art auction. A digital transcription of the image was published on an academic forum. Hours later, the site was taken down. Noël disappeared 3 days after sending an email that read, "It is not a text. It is a presence, and it has already entered me." Those who viewed the file reported excruciating migraines, nausea, insomnia, and recurring dreams of a spiral rotating at the center of a sky of flesh. Symbolism experts could not identify the origin of the characters. Only a 9-year-old autistic child, accidentally exposed to the image, spoke calmly. "It is calling. The pattern is inescapable." Those who read or even attempt to comprehend the scroll are transformed. Some succumb to fear. Others become conduits. Yet all, without exception, end up disappearing or leaving behind fragments of a madness that cannot be explained by human logic. What if the true purpose of the scroll is not merely to be read, but to be heard, or even to be lived? Perhaps it is not just an ancient object. Perhaps it is an invitation, or worse, a contagion. The Scroll of the Abyss does not confine itself to affecting only its direct readers. Wherever it passes, it leaves behind a trail of decay, paranoia, and inexplicable events. As though an invisible shadow accompanies it, contaminating environments, corrupting fragile minds, and awakening dormant powers. And it is not merely the content that disturbs, it is its very physical presence. There are reports that even sealed and locked away, the scroll emits a subtle noise, like an underground whisper, audible only when one is utterly alone. In 1703, at a monastery in the Carpathians, a quarantine was declared after a chest containing the scroll arrived, sent by a Viennese collector. Before it could even be opened, 4 monks fell ill with high fevers and delirium. One of them, in his frenzy, wrote on the cell walls with skin peeled from his own palms, "It breathes in silence." The abbot ordered the chest to be sealed, buried beneath the altar and covered with lime. Still, in the following months, the Iiwa monastery recorded waves of collective insomnia, visual hallucinations, and episodes of spontaneous candle combustion, candles no one had lit. By the end of that winter, only 2 monks remained alive. The site was abandoned and never reoccupied. In the 20th century, a fragment of the scroll resurfaced mysteriously in the library of Uppsala University in Sweden. After its archiving, students and professors began reporting the presence of a hooded figure roaming the stacks at night. Security cameras captured strange noises, akin to words being spoken in reverse. When the fragment was isolated in a lead-lined vault, the phenomena ceased. Yet the guards who transported it never returned to duty. One of them, committed to a psychiatric clinic, incessantly repeated, "The eye opened, the eye opened, the eye opened." Another striking case occurred in 1989 when a private collector in Bavaria briefly displayed the scroll in his mansion during an occultists' gathering. 3 guests vanished overnight. When the police investigated, they found the main hall completely empty, save for a spiral painted in blood on the ceiling, a macabre detail, for there were no stairs or support marks. The collector was discovered in the cellar, kneeling, staring at a blank wall, murmuring words in a tongue specialists identified as a phonetic reconstruction of extinct Sumerian. He never returned to a coherent state. Curiously, the scroll also affects technology. There are reports of corrupted digital recordings, files that breathe or emit sounds when not in use. A team of cryptographers attempted to digitize segments of the manuscript in 2015. During decoding, the system froze and a message spontaneously appeared on the monitor. Enter. No command had been executed. One of the analysts suffered a seizure and lost his sight for 48 hours. When he recovered, he described having seen a tunnel of living flesh, whispering words that never ceased. The scroll's curse seems not to be confined to physical space. Evidence suggests it acts as a symbolic vector. The mere act of beholding its symbols, even through copies or descriptions, suffices to trigger effects. This has turned the pursuit of the scroll into a desperate race among the curious cultists and secret agencies seeking to contain it. But what terrifies most is not the content of the text, but the behavior of the scroll itself. It appears to move, vanish, choose, as if it possesses its own will, or as if it were only an extension of something far greater, slumbering at the heart of a reality we cannot comprehend. Wherever it goes, be it in crypts, archives, basements, or computers, madness precedes it. Like a harbinger, a trail of blood and terror, an invisible signature. The world may forget the names of its victims, but it will always remember the symbol left behind, the inverted spiral. In recent times, the mystery of the Scroll of the Abyss re-emerged not at the hands of archaeologists or occultists, but of scientists. In 2021, a team of computational linguists in Slovakia, specializing in the decryption of ancient manuscripts via artificial intelligence, received an anonymous partial image of the scroll, accompanied by a typed note. "Decode it, if you can." The file appeared corrupted, yet when opened, it generated a cascading sequence of characters that abruptly halted, revealing a single line of text in archaic Latin. "Et non erit verba, sed oris abyssum." And there shall be no words, but the mouth of the abyss. Led by Dr. Eliska Janova, the team decided to employ an experimental predictive reading technique, cross-referencing the scroll's symbols with digitized esoteric databases and Mesopotamian codices. The outcome was unexpected. The text's patterns suggested a living structure, akin to a self-referential linguistic organism, which fed off any attempt at decipherment. The more they tried to translate it, the more new sequences emerged. It was as though the text itself were growing. On a silent night, the AI processing the content spontaneously generated an animation, a spiral rotating slowly, overlaid by a scarlet eye and a series of characters flickering in sync with the heartbeats of one of the researchers, connected to the system by biometric monitoring. When the spiral stopped, the system froze. All the lights in the room went out for 11 minutes. When they returned, the screen displayed only one phrase: "He comes through the letters." Dr. Janova vanished that very night. The rest of the team was found days later, wandering in the forest in a complete catatonic state, their lips sewn shut with copper wire. There were no signs of struggle, no logical explanation. Yet scrawled on the laboratory wall in a black substance was once more the inverted spiral. Since then, speculation has grown. The most terrifying hypothesis is that the scroll of the abyss is not merely a physical or symbolic object, but a sort of portal. Not in the literal sense, but the metaphysical, a textual structure that allows access to, or the manifestation of, something. An entity that lives through language, that seeps into the eyes, echoes in the voices, and molds reality through reading. Some scholars call this a silent pact. Reading the scroll does not require explicit consent. By deciphering it, even partially, the reader becomes part of a process, a slow invocation, dissolved into understanding. The entity does not arrive as a classic demon with flames and screams. It settles as an idea, a persistent thought, an inner echo that will not be silenced. What is more disturbing, however, is that the manuscript appears to react more powerfully to the modern world. As though digital connectivity, symbolic dissemination, and the relentless flood of images and words were fertile ground for its expansion. Some fear that, if the scroll is reproduced on a global scale, even in fragments, it might piece itself together, like a scattered jigsaw puzzle waiting to be reassembled by human curiosity itself. Perhaps the abyss it invokes is not outside, but within. And perhaps it no longer needs to be read with human eyes. It is enough that we think of it, that we attempt to understand it, that we speak of it, as we do now. The scroll of the abyss remains an enigma suspended between myth and reality. Its trace extends through medieval monasteries, accursed palaces, academic experiments, and unspeakable deliriums. It is not merely an ancient relic, but a catalyst, a presence that dwells within words, distorts comprehension, and infiltrates the human soul like a seed of the unspeakable. In our journey through these shadows, we have seen that it is not simply a lost manuscript, but an eternal cycle, the calling, the reading, the transformation. Each individual who has tried to comprehend it becomes part of its symbolic body, feeding its essence with fears, beliefs, and sacrifices. And the more we strive to reveal its meaning, the deeper it sinks, as though the true secret lies not in the letters, but in what they let slip away. Today, we live in an age of information overload, where every mystery seems a click away, and yet the scroll of the abyss reminds us of something essential, that there are knowledge we do not own, that there are words that must not be uttered, and that the abyss at times does not require us to gaze into it. It simply waits for us to mention its name. Perhaps the greatest lesson of this tale is that the deepest terror does not arise from visible monsters, but from ideas that take root and grow in silence. And in this sense, the scroll still breathes, still whispers, and you, now that you know of it, do you feel that something is watching you between the lines? Until our next descent into the shadows of history.